104 hours. That is longer than like 4 days. I know because I Googled it. Terraria. One of the most popular and beloved games of our time. But boy oh boy is the achievement list one for the ages. It contains a whopping 115 different achievements. Within this list, you need to fight every single boss, complete every holiday event, and do a ridiculous amount of RNG grinding and fishing. What the So today, I'm obviously going to get every single one of those achievements, so you will drop a like and subscribe. Okay, anyways, you begin the game with making a character. I didn't change much of my guy, but I went with the glorious name of OnlyFans Lover 42. I thought about naming him Rosa Parks Seat, but chose this one because it's more personal. I then made my world the typical classic medium-sized, and named such world Gorlock the Destroyer.
My name is Optimus Prime.
Spawning into the world, and the first thing you obviously should do is chop down some trees so you can make a house and stay safe from the monsters. Doing this gave me my first achievement of the day. I then made my first workbench, which is the initial crafting tool in this game, and also finished off my first house, which I made multiple tenements for the future slaves I will have living here. And once the guide moved in, I got the achievement for that. So now that I have a few housing units made, it's time to go find better gear so I can attempt to not die to everything in this forsaken land. I found my first ore of the game, which was tin. Now, at this current moment in time, that is considered gold, but in the future, it will be as useless as my left hand. Hey, yo! I then lasted a full night, which is a new home course record if you know what I mean. If you don't, I'm sorry. So I continued mining downwards because in Terraria, you can do that basically 100% safely. And I ran into a minecart track, which was super helpful because it takes me to all kinds of new places. Except I was unaware of how to exit the minecart, so I just rode back and forth on it for a hot minute and accidentally ran over an enemy because I couldn't get out. But it was an achievement, thankfully, so I did indeed giggle. Right next to the vehicular manslaughter I just committed was also a golden chest. Now, these make my blood pressure go downwards. Wink, wink. And when I opened it, I got shown glorious things and an achievement. Sadly, a bad booty bitch wasn't included, but I did find a magic mirror, which when used, shows your disgusting face, and it's so bad you teleport back to the spawn to escape it. Following the minecart track still, I dropped down a tiny hole and it blessed me with a crystal heart. These give you additional life in the game and are basically essential if you want to beat all the bosses. I finally deviated away from the minecart track and the gods were mad at me, so they dropped a 400-pound boulder onto my head and I vanished from this realm, but got another achievement. This sent me back to home base though, and I took a little pause from being a cave gremlin and crafted some items with all the ore I had found. One of those is my first anvil, which is used to make weapons and armor in this game. Speaking of armor, I then went and made some and got another achievement for finally putting on clothing. Next, we headed back down into the gremlin caves because sunlight is scary. And putting in 100 hours to Terraria really makes that statement true, which is kind of sad. But I was drowning underwater like a certain group of people because I can't swim, and I found another golden chest, which inside had a lot of good things actually, and one of them was the summon item for the Eye of Cthulhu, which is one of the first bosses in the game. I had acquired some decent things by now, so I just spent like 2 hours in the mines, and while there I found a load of new ores and a surprising amount of heart crystals. So when I left the caves hours later and re-emerged into civilization, I nearly had max hearts already, and lots of demonite ore, which I used to make decent weapons, we'll say. Now I was feeling myself like Ice Spice, so I went back to the corruption area, which was very close to my house, and I'm scared. But inside I made it to the little ball things you gotta break to spawn the first boss of the game. And you need a hammer to do this, so I quickly went back to my house and made my first hammer. And then ran back to the Shadow Orb is what it's called, and broke it, which made me piss my pants. I then broke 2 more because the adrenaline rush is like no other. And we then got the first boss fight of the game, the Eater of Worlds. Basically an oversized worm who probably smells like a 7th grade locker room with a clogged toilet. I was definitely not ready to beat it with just my flimsy sword, so instead I just spammed grenades over and over. Now this proved to be very effective and I have now fallen in love with explosive weapons. No wonder the Middle East is how it is. Anyways, after many grenades, I won the fight and felt like a god amongst men. Or just the guide. I then felt like fighting the Eye of Cthulhu since I was apparently invincible now in my mind. And I spawned it in. However, 3 seconds later it turned to daytime and I learned a very valuable lesson. Most bosses in this game can only be fought at night. A true canon event. So, in the meantime, I decided it's time to make some questionable choices and go straight to hell. Or the underworld. On my adventures down to the biblical location, I got blown up by a chest. It's a sad day when the things you trust turn on you the most. But I got an achievement, yeah. Oh my god! So after that, I did make it to the underworld finally and got another achievement just for entering it. The next items I went after were all the Hellstone weapons and armor. These are very good for pre-hard mode. And they are so good because acquiring the ore causes lava to drop also, basically making it as annoying as my ex-girlfriend in terms of just living.
That's what I'm saying.
but after an hour or so I got a ton of it and started to make some good things. First I made the molten pickaxe because it lets you mine everything you can in pre-hard mode. At least I think it does, but honestly I just made that up. At the same time I did that, a blood moon was also happening, and I just straight up hit in my house as it passed, and got the achievement when it ended. Before fighting any more bosses, I made the executive choice to really make sure I had everything I needed. This meant I also needed a gun because we are in America, baby! Freedom! So I bought the Mini Shark from my local gun dealer, which is a fully automatic weapon and used all over the country. And now we are definitely good to fight the Eye of Cthulhu. This boss fight spawns in a giant eye, and it's quite easy if you just shoot it. And that's what I did, and I beat it and got some items and another achievement. Well, all that fun is now over, and I was slightly depressed, so I totally meant to fall nearly to my death. This was totally on purpose. But please help. Oh my god! After I teleported home and then made some mana stars since I had yet to increase my mana at all, and I got an achievement. So I could have just went and fought the Wall of Flesh already, but obviously I'm not an idiot. So I wanted to make sure I beat every single other boss I could before that. This meant I got to go fight the King Slime, and I felt kind of overpowered fighting him because he doesn't do much besides take it like a good girl. This then gave the town its first pet, and you have to find all the slime pets later for an achievement much further in the list. But I did give the one I had a little boop on the nose and got an achievement for petting it. I then went to the jungle in my world and found my first bee nest inside of it. The bees are super annoying in this game and in real life, so it's safe to say I had hatred going into this fight, which led me to beat the wings right off the bee, and I got an achievement after defeating the queen bee. I then fought Skeletron and got a boner when I won the fight. I survived a gruesome goblin invasion, which I swore looked just like how kindergarten went for me. So that is basically all the mainstream bosses for pre-hard mode that I could do so far. I then wanted to get some more items to use before the Wall of Flesh fight, since it's quite hard in honesty with the items you get right now. So I just went and explored for a while and found my first grappling hook, which is a cool item that sort of just teleports you anywhere nearby when used. I then equipped some more armor and vanity items, threw a yo-yo for the first time, and made it to space, which is something even Elon Musk struggles to do. I also went into the dungeon because I can now that Skeletron is dead, and I opened one of the locked golden chests inside. A bit later, while grinding for items still, I fought the Groom apparently, which is just a zombie in a tuxedo. But killing it is special, I guess, and I got an achievement. Now I finally decided to go fight the glorious Wall of Flesh, and I sort of messed up a little bit during my first try fighting him, and I just died. We don't talk about it though, because next time I fought him, I took his fleshlight and used it like a public bathroom and got my achievement. That was rightfully mine from the start. This also sends the world into hard mode if you didn't know. Essentially, this just makes every enemy a lot more difficult, and it adds a ton of new things, numerous bosses, events, NPCs, basically just a lot of things to do, which makes me go crazy. The first step into the damnation of my mind is to go break demon altars so I can spawn in the new ores, which are essential in progressing this game. I also mined cobalt, which is a new ore like right after that, and apparently I traversed a grand total of 26.2 miles, or a marathon inside of this game. Now that's sad. The next step for this game is to just mine as much new ore as you can and try to get better and better equipment, because the new bosses are no joke and will beat your ass if you don't prepare for them in a good manner. While grinding ores and all that stuff though, I got jumped by goddamn Tinkerbell and it gave me an achievement. I then spent a whopping 4 hours straight just mining and fighting enemies. But in my eventful evening, I fell into a spider nest and got an achievement, but also died right after when they abused me so rudely. I can now relate to Ron Weasley's fear. One of the most crucial items in this game are wings. These allow you to fly for a few seconds and also negate fall damage most of the time. So I made some finally and went with the demon one since I'm on my villain arc right now. I then tried to beat the Queen Slime, which is the first boss in hard mode, and I was destroyed, which is kind of sad to be honest. So instead I grinded for a little bit more and fought the first mechanical boss called the Destroyer. This is basically just a big worm but with metal all over it. Now I was definitely not winning this fight because I was super unprepared yet again. Thankfully though, it did turn to daytime and he despawned. Apparently the townspeople thought that was funny, so they threw a party and I got an achievement. So at least someone is having a good time. I then respawned in the King of Slime, who was the easy one to fight, and I got lucky first try when he dropped the slime mount. I then equipped the mount for the achievement gotten from doing that. Next I wanted to get an achievement for entering a graveyard, which I made one myself from falling to my death over and over on top of my house. But don't hate the player, hate the game. Down in the caves again, I made a makeshift enemy farm because I needed some better items which had very rare drop chances. And I fought a nymph for the first time and killed her, giving another achievement. And I had finally gotten the Daedalus storm bow. What did he say? From an enemy, which is an insane item that rains down arrows from the sky instead of your actual bow. This allowed me to easily beat the Queen Slime after I tried again fighting her. So I then teleported back to the base, and for some reason the force within me said to get healed by the nurse. So I did. And since inflation is the 8th wonder of the world, I had apparently spent over 1 gold on this typical blonde bitch. So now it's back to the grind again. While just playing the game and trying to level up, I ended up beating the Destroyer, which is the worm from earlier, and it didn't give me any achievements, which is sad. But I ended up warding off a pirate invasion, destroying over 10,000 tiles in the game since I love blowing things up, and also reached the very bottom of the world, which is easy. You just dig down. We don't talk about how I died to Hellstone before that though. Much later, I crafted the Mega Shark, which is another essential item needed for fighting the mechanical bosses. This finally allowed me to defeat the twins, and I did it twice back to back because I hate them. And on the next night, I battled the final mechanical boss, Skeletron Prime. He isn't that hard to be honest, since he's built like XQC, but once I defeated him, I got the achievement for defeating all 3 mechanical bosses. Now I can make one of the best pickaxes in the game. The pickaxe. Yes, that's its name.
Wait, no, wait.
But it gives you an achievement and also allows you to mine this green ore called chlorophyte, which is used in the future to make the best armor in the game. Now that all 3 mechanical bosses are gone, the world is now growing life fruit in the jungle. These are essentially just heart crystals from the early game and increase your health even more. However, life fruit are much harder to find right away and can be a pain in the ass to see half the time. So now that I managed to get my first life fruit, I fell into the usual Terraria player addiction of trying everything in my power to get max golden health. I even made multiple farms in the jungle trying to get them because I couldn't find any to save my life. But I also made the farms wrong since they weren't underground technically, so, yeah. I did fight the twins again though, since I was bored and frustrated, and killing something always helps with that feeling. Don't show that to my parole officer. Even though I have failed at finding pretty much any life fruit, I decided I should fight Plantera because it is basically the last boss before the ending bosses, if that makes sense. It probably doesn't, but you have to beat Plantera to get access to Golem, so that's what I did. Now I may have looked up a tutorial on how to do this however, since I was a bit nervous on how much I would get destroyed. So I made an entire arena to fight Plantera in, and made these 2 teleporters, which made it so all I had to do was shoot out of this window at Plantera and then teleport when he got close to me. Honestly, not very fair, but I defeated Plantera easily and was overwhelmed with sticky white substances. I then went back to this dungeon since it had a lot of new and challenging people there, and for whatever reason I got this super rare drop like right away, which was a first, and I guess it was achievement worthy. Right after that, I used the jungle key I found from fighting enemies in the jungle and opened its respective chest. Each biome has a unique chest in the dungeon, and getting the keys for them are literally such a pain in the ass. So now I was just searching for the temple underground in the jungle, whilst also trying to find more life fruit obviously. While doing this, I apparently killed someone named Tim, and he gave me an achievement, so now I feel bad. And the jungle temple was funnily enough like right next to where I had fought Plantera, just barely out of my view. So I found it and then used the handy key I had to enter it. However, I did not fight Golem right away because I was fearful that I wasn't ready for it quite yet. Instead, I went and made an above ground mushroom biome for some reason because I thought I needed one.
Retard or what?
It ended up giving me 2 achievements for doing that though, so I can't complain. Instead of grinding for more life fruit, my solution to being nervous about fighting Golem was to just look up a tutorial on how to beat him. And the dude on the YouTube video told me to just make a platform and shoot rockets down onto Golem. And I gotta say, this fight ended up being like ugly how easy it was. I actually felt bad, the poor dude's head even came off. But we beat Golem and then got another achievement. Later on, I fought another enemy, and this time it was an archaeologist named Dr. Bones. I don't know what bone he was after, but he won't be chasing anymore since he is now dead. Life fruit was constantly a plague of my existence in the start of this hard mode world because it just never spawned in, or I just didn't see it. But I was in a desperate attempt to find some and placed down so many torches to light up this room that it spawned in the torch god. This is sort of an Easter egg where it does this when 100 torches are on your screen at once. A Martian probe also showed up and they tried to take me with them and, you know, do the typical Martian activities that Elon Musk probably likes. But before they got me, I simply eliminated them all, surviving their raid on my body. And finally, I achieved maximum stats for my health and mana. The life fruit problem was finally solved once I just played long enough because the life fruit keeps growing all over the jungle, and it actually becomes hard to not see them with how many grow. Another boss to do before the final few was called Duke Fishron. You summon him by fishing with a certain bait type, and he's actually super strong. But again, you can cheese the fight by just making teleporters and going back and forth while shooting him with a Mega Shark. Once I beat him, I then got the achievement for beating him, and also another for defeating every boss in Terraria. I think this might be outdated since we still have quite a few left. The next few achievements I got are all from different fights in this game. First, I did another wave battle, but this time it was just a solar eclipse. During this, a bunch of new enemies spawn in, and they are super annoying. I then went to the dungeon and fought the ancient cultist, who is this easy boss before the Moon Lord. I will admit, however, I did end up failing a few times at first before getting some better gear, but once you have good items, it ends up being quite easy to defeat him. On completion of that battle, 4 pillars are then summoned into the world. Each has very difficult enemies on them and must be destroyed to get new items. Also, if you destroy all 4, it will summon the Moon Lord a minute after the last is destroyed, so you do have to be ready, or like me, you just accept defeat right away. So before actually beating the Moon Lord, I spent around 3 to 4 hours grinding items and trying to get better equipment. Mostly just trying to get the best melee armor because it helps so much to have a ton of defense with the melee strategy I used. And then the fight was very simple. Once I constructed my little cage of torture, I sat there in the honey, which auto-healed me the whole time. And I also popped a ton of perks which gave me numerous fighting buffs. I then just used this weapon that can go through the walls and hit the Moon Lord's private spots over and over until they broke off. And eventually all that was left was his heart. And I guess even the bad guys have a heart also. But he doesn't anymore since I destroyed it and got my achievement for doing so. Terraria then gave the game a neat little credit outro sort of thingy. But that son of a bitch Pinky Slime was right next to me when the game ended, and I got so excited because killing it is an achievement. And I had yet to spot one the entire time I've been playing. The game is now technically over, but there is still a few boss fights I need to do, but before that I just went and tried to clean up achievements at random, to be honest. The first one I got was for healing myself while drowning with water. Yes, this is logic. And then I made another world and quickly fought the Brain of Cthulhu, which wasn't available to fight in my current world because I had corruption, not crimson. I then upgraded my weapons a lot more and fought all 3 mechanical bosses simultaneously, which was shockingly easy and I didn't even come close to the other side. After that, I then crafted the Terror Blade, which is made from lots of souls of light, dark, and a bunch of other crap. Honestly, overrated. The Dryad, or whatever her name is, sells these pumpkin seeds, which I bought a ton of, and then grew some pumpkins, which I then made into the Pumpkin Medallion. By using that at night, you can start the Pumpkin Moon, which is just another wave fight. This one is actually quite hard though, and reaching wave 15 took me a few tries to do. But once I simply reached it, I got an achievement. I then had to go into my computer's settings and change it to Christmas time so I could get present drops from enemies and be able to summon the Frost Legion for another wave fight. The Frost Legion, however, was leagues easier than the Pumpkin one, and made me feel bad for bullying the nice snowmen. Then came one of the longest item grinds I've ever done in a video game, the Zenith. This weapon is the best in the entire game in my opinion. Also the same one I will be using the rest of the game's length. But before I got it, I had to go and obtain pretty much every single sword you could have gotten so far. And Lord have mercy, these drop from enemies, but the rarity for some of these weapons is just ridiculous. I also found that I am extremely unlucky, and even if it says the chance is like 1 out of 40, it would typically take me 200 plus kills on the enemy to get the drop I needed. So it's safe to say I had an existential crisis or two a few times throughout this game's RNG system. Anyways, I managed to scrap together every single sword after hours of dying inside to make the Zenith. I then farmed the Moon Lord. Yes, I farmed him. I still remember being proud of beating him one time. But to get the Terraria and Yo-Yo drop, I had to kill the guy over 10 times because my luck is just something special. Anyways, he dropped it finally, and I got the achievement for getting the best Yo-Yo in Terraria. Then I got a Frost Moon fight, which is just another wave battle, and reaching wave 15 gives another achievement. The Terra Spark boots are the next horrible item I went after. Honestly, these are super good, but attaining them actually sucked. You have to find numerous items once more from drops, and getting the drops is just ass. Imagine watching paint dry. That's how it feels to sit still and wait as your sentry kills enemies right next to you and you don't get drops for hours. But I again got it eventually, so yeah. Then I accidentally fought the Empress of Light, who is the real last boss of the game. You fight her at night when killing one of these illuminated bug things, and honestly, it was disappointing how easy it was. Like, the poor rainbow bitch didn't even have a chance. After that, I then went to do numerous easy tasks. First, I made a rainbow rod so I can spread the gay everywhere. And I also fired a bee gun while wearing a full set of bee armor. Then I had to do yet again another wave battle, which gets very repetitive once you do every single one of them. That's what I'm saying. The next achievement, called Rainbows and Unicorns, is by far my least favorite yet. You have to just sit in the hollow and wait until an enemy drops the hollow key for the dungeon. The drop rate for the hollow key, by the way, is 1 out of 2,500. Yeah, you heard me right. A 0.04% chance of ever getting it. And the only reason I even needed the dumb thing is so I can use it while riding a unicorn. I don't condone this. I then did an easy achievement where you just drive this remote drone into the top of the world. I also found the Shimmer, which is just this random ass new biome in the underground that you can throw stuff into. And another for defeating Deer Clops, the chilly one-eyed bitch made creatures who can't take a zenith up the balls for nothing. I then found every single slime pet, which was kind of a pain and I had to look up what to do. But I also equipped a die in every slot and went with white because you get privilege. I then scammed a tenant into being as happy as possible by isolating them with a wizard who probably casts happy spells on his depressed friends. And I finally got every single NPC possible to live in my slave camp. This sucked, and honestly, I wish I could explain how much it did indeed suck, but you just had to be there. Which is why I might start streaming on the second channel soon so you can see me suffer in real time. After that, I also was just playing the game, and after 50 hours of gameplay, I got a slime rain for the first time, which could have happened the entire game so far, but it didn't. It's safe to say, I also had a sticky situation. I then did the last boss fight I ever would have to, and beat this random thing I fished up during a blood moon. And I also killed every single slime type, which was a tad bit bugged, and I think I got lucky, but I won't complain. I was then just running around and chilling, and apparently tricked a gnome into turning to stone. Honestly, I didn't even see him. I was just looking at my phone, but I got the achievement and laughed so hard, it's insane. So the last few achievements left are mostly just random stuff that are actually really hard to do. But first, I did an easy task of just flying a kite during a windy day. That, however, is when the easy stuff ended. The next thing I went after was to get the Ankh shield. This took me forever. I don't even want to rewatch what I had to do to get this, but let's just say it took more than 2 hours of grinding one single item drop. I don't even want the achievement. Next, it was a bit easier. All you had to do was get fishing bait from the underworld and then fish with it in the underworld. And I also googled what a rare sea was in Terraria. Apparently, these worlds actually have like cool changes in them, but I just copied and pasted one into my game to get the achievement. I can't lie. Right after that, I accidentally summoned in 9 minions at once, and I sort of missed the achievement, but here it is anyway. I then had the most annoying ones left. All the angler quests, which require you to complete 200 total. These suck and can only be done once a day. So I did the first one in my normal world to get the achievement. I then said, you know what? I don't care anymore. I've been grinding the game for 70 hours. I'm gonna look up the easy cheese way to do this. So I went and looked up achievements on the Steam Workshop for Terraria. Inside, I found a lot of worlds where all you gotta do is download it and then enter and do like one thing to complete the task. So first I just did one with a world that was free of corruption, and I talked to the lady there and got that achievement. I feel no shame. I then downloaded another one in journey mode, which was just made for angler quests particularly. It also had the cell phone in a chest, which helped me a lot since getting the parts from that required luck with the traveling merchant. And the golden delight was there also, which is another dumb item you need to get from worms or something. So I then spent like 45 minutes just auto passing the time in the game and doing the quest for the angler until reaching 200 and being complete with all of his quests and the achievements for this game. Jesus Christ, I can't believe it took me that long. Good lord. I'm never gambling. My luck is horrible.